Take Me With You, episode 24. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we are talking to Paige. Paige is your typical college grad who's interning at a camp and applying to grad school and just living the dream.
Is that typical for college grads?
Probably, right? She's like wandering and figuring out what she wants to do next in life, I guess. You know, she's 23, 24. She's 24 as of this release date, so that's exciting. Okay. But wonderful. She worked at my camp last summer back when I was working at a camp, and she was working at my camp. So, welcome, Paige!
Thank you.
That was one of the weirdest introductions I've done. Paige, explain yourself.
Hello. Yes. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, I'm Paige. I'm a young adult. Just, trying to figure out where God wants me to go and really open to whatever that looks like, honestly. So if that's camp, that's great. If that's grad school, that's great. If that's going back to some other foreign country, that's also great. So still figuring that out.
Awesome.
Are the Australia dreams still alive?
Ooh, Australia.
Ooh, I did look into that for a while. The dream is still alive. The money is not quite alive, so that's something that we're figuring out, yes.
Cool. Well, we have a few questions that we like to ask all our guests to get started with. So first of all, Paige, why do you travel?
It's a good question.
We thought so.
I originally started traveling because it was just something that was, generally thought of as fun to do and to take part in. But after having a few family vacations and everything, I found that the true heart of it is experiencing a different culture and being able to be with them and just have my world completely changed and perceptions of things and conclusions, I guess, questioned. And I really love just having everything that I hold to be true to be questioned sometimes. So that's part of why I travel. I also love food. So
there it is. That's why you're friends with Cheryl.
That was the real reason that she wanted to sound profound.
Well, she did.
She's a young adult.
Oh, man.
That was a beautiful answer, though.
Right before you slammed it.
I know. Yeah, typical. You can always tell when the guests are my friends because then I just make fun of them.
Oh, please keep it real. Yes.
So, Paige, what type of traveler are you?
So far, I'd say I did do some vacation travel. I've been really fortunate in my life to be able to do some programs through my university and just kind of like a juniors abroad kind of thing. But I think the most significant travel that I've done has been through the study abroad program, where we got to live in Lithuania for 3 months. And did a little bit of traveling on the bookends of that particular experience too, but that was probably the most impactful.
Lithuania.
Yeah, Lavas.
Wow. So for the people who maybe couldn't find Lithuania on a map,
me being one of them,
where might one find Lithuania on a map?
Yeah. So if you know where Poland is, that's helpful. But it's,
yes, I do.
Yeah, but it's right along the Baltic Sea. There's 3 Baltic countries. So Lithuania is on the bottom, and then Latvia, and then Estonia. And then if you go farther north from Estonia, you're landing in Russian area.
Yeah.
Okay, I can picture that.
Yeah.
I can picture that. Yeah, that was a good description, Paige.
Thank
passed. You. Now we believe that you went there.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what is your number one travel tip?
Number one travel tip. As far as living somewhere, I'd say, well, first of all, for just general travel, I'd say learn a little bit of the language, be able to say hello, thank you, goodbye, where's the bathroom, all the essentials. particularly because, especially in smaller countries, I found that in Lithuania, the locals just really appreciated when you tried, and it didn't matter if you completely butchered it, but it just meant something if you actually gave it a go and thought it was important enough to try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you go to learn those basic words? Do you just like Google basic phrases in Lithuanian, or like how do you go about that?
Honestly, I mean, Duolingo is helpful if it's a language that is more common. Lithuanian is not on Duolingo, so that's sad. But YouTube is actually really helpful because then you can hear how it's pronounced and everything. So I definitely looked up a couple of sweet YouTube videos before heading off. And that was good.
Nice. So tell us a little bit more about Duolingo. We haven't actually mentioned that at all on the podcast yet. So why don't you just kind of give a little brief overview of what it is and then tell us how you use it.
Yeah, sure. Duolingo is a free app that you can download on your phone. At least the free portion of it, you are given classes. If you have some understanding of a language, then you can take a test, and they'll put you where they think you're most proficient. And then from there, if you're starting as a beginner like me, they'll just, slap you in the beginning and you'll take classes. They go over different categories. Like one of the fun aspects of it is that you can connect with your friends and kind of compete. Like, hey, I got more XP in Spanish than you, man.
So they've got that gamification going on.
Yeah, and I've never tried Pro, but supposedly if you pay for Pro, then you also have a one-on-one coach from that country that will talk to you or something like that once a week. So that was,
I did not know that. That's
really
cool.
That was something that I was looking into. I don't know if it's once a week or like what those particular restrictions are, but yeah.
I have heard that their definition of fluent might be a little off, because if they say that through just the app you could ever really get fluent, I feel like I might question that a little bit. But maybe for like a selling point on their app that you could get fluent in a language, that might be,
I mean, it could definitely be a helpful first step.
Sure,
yeah.
Well, and I think anything that just gets you doing it. And so if you just have an app on your phone and you're using it regularly, that's probably just going to be more successful because if you're actually using it, And so convenience, I think, probably makes a difference there too. And I have used it a tiny bit. And what's cool is that can't you like speak into it? And so you can actually like say the word and it will hear it and everything.
Yeah, that's part of the lessons. So they have different elements that you can do. And so one of them, you listen and then try to type or touch the words that you think you just heard. One of them, you have to speak the word that you see, and they will tell you if their pronunciation is correct or not. Others, they might ask a question at a more advanced level, and you have to type a response in that language. So I do like how it also incorporates not only just verbal understanding, but being able to understand via reading the text or trying to develop your understanding of written language. So
yeah, awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so it's like we got like 2 tips for the price of 1.
Ooh,
right?
Fancy.
So learn a little bit of the language and a suggestion on how to do that.
And that's what happens when you get into the episode 20s of Take Me With You, maybe.
Sure. All right, Paige. So what trip are you going to be telling us about today?
Yeah, so I was going to touch on a little bit about the study abroad experience in Lithuania.
Awesome. That's what I was hoping you would say.
I know. I'm all excited now that we know where it is.
Yeah, I know very little about Lithuania, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place for sure. Definitely in my heart underrated by many people, but people don't know about it, so
yeah.
It's there.
So tell us all about it.
Okay. It became a official country. It has a really rich history. But it became independent from the Soviet Union in 1991. I think it's really cool the way that they became independent was a peaceful protest. And so they were a part of this hand-holding thing with Estonia and Latvia. And basically they all held hands in this giant chain as a sign of protest. And by the time some of the politics had trickled down, Lithuania was able to become a country again without violence, which I think is just really incredible. But my experience as a study abroad definitely had no context of what to expect. When I first got there, I was immediately greeted by a different culture. Generally, the people, there's still some hurt, understandably from the Soviet Union, and it's difficult at times to really connect to the locals, at least the older generation. It's not like in America where people are smiling and greeting you and saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" to, people at your local supermarket. There's definitely that more reserved and like you had to develop a relationship first in order to have those kinds of greetings, which honestly felt very authentic and a really good switch for me at that time. And let's see, I studied at an international university. So it was really helpful to me because the classes were being taught in English. But because the classes were being taught in English, there's a huge draw from a bunch of different countries in that area. Russia, Estonia, Ukraine, Albania, Kazakhstan. A bunch of these students are coming to this little university in Lithuania to earn an English-speaking degree because that can get you ahead in part of Eastern Europe and in Europe. I don't know, maybe Europe in general. But so there's just a huge array and mix of culture. And in my dorm, I lived with 2 Albanians and 2 Georgians, and they were fantastic. Definitely crazy in the best way, and I love them so much.
So did you do the program through your school here?
Yes, I did it through George Fox University. They offered some communications classes over there, and so I was able to earn that part of my degree.
That's very cool. So I guess first of all, I'd just love to hear, like, how was that process, like, applying for the program, and, like, how difficult was it? I don't know, like, how did that all go?
Yeah, including, like, did you just apply to study abroad, or did you pick Lithuania?
Yeah, so that was actually really kind of an interesting process. In the beginning of the year, I voiced interest to the study abroad coordinators, and they were like, "Oh, we'll get back to you over email. It'll be great." Yada, yada, yada. But I also applied to be a RA, and when I didn't get the RA position, I was just devastated. And I remember going out to this bridge and just praying and being like, "God, what is happening? I felt this is what you're wanting me to do." And then I open my phone and I pull up my email and it says, "Hey, if you can get all your stuff in 3 days, you can go to Lithuania."
3 days?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was like passports, this was vaccinations, this was application questions, interview. And so this was just like, I don't know, but somehow it all came together and it happened, and I just really felt like, personally, like this was a place that I really needed to go to.
Wow.
That's surprising. So was this in the middle of school, or like was this during a break? I mean, you just like packed up and left in 3 days.
Yeah. This was towards the end of my sophomore year. Where they're making decisions about who's going to go on study abroad in the fall, and then who's going to be our next, res life and everything like that.
But
so it was still part of the school year.
Yeah.
So you had to like leave early?
No, I had to make
due in 3 days.
the decision.
It was due in 3 days, right?
Well, it was already overdue, but they said, "Hey, you can do it."
She didn't leave in 3 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you actually like left in 3 days. It was like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, that would be pretty intense.
Okay.
So just the application, not too crazy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So what were some, I guess, living with your roommates, what were some of the cultural differences that you noticed, like being in a living space together?
Okay, so my Albanian roommates, and this is just them. I don't know if they necessarily represent the whole Albanian culture or anything, but they were very, generally very loud, very loving, very caring and affectionate, always wanting to give hugs, sometimes like little side kisses and stuff like that. I remember going into our kitchen and seeing a big group of Albanians like dancing late at night in the kitchen to some nice Albanian tunes, which are pretty catchy. And yeah, just, generally very like big and warm and welcoming. My Georgian roommates also welcoming, but kind of in a more subtle way. I remember going out with them a couple times in town and just, more of like a deep, conversational, down to earth kind of vibe, just generally from my Georgian roommates. But we all got along pretty well, and it's kind of funny the general stereotype of American, Albanian, and Georgian culture at that university was that we were three of the craziest cultures there. And they put us all in the same room. So our room was definitely pretty wild and pretty fun. But
yeah. So there were a bunch of other cultures that were there as well.
Yeah. We had some people from South Korea. We had a guy from Germany, Kazakhstan, a fair amount of Russian and Ukrainian students. One of my best friends ended up being from Ukraine, Daria Kuchiinska. She's fantastic. And I don't know, one of the stories that I just really love about the different mixes of cultures from LCC is that it wouldn't happen when I was there, but I think a semester previous, there was a student that hung a Russian flag outside of their window, and someone in Lithuania just walking by took a picture of it, and it went all over the news, and it was really big, and everyone's like, oh no, they're hosting Russians, and this university is against us. But then the next day, there was a student next to them hung their Ukrainian flag. And then the next, throughout that week, there were just more and more flags that were coming out of windows. And you had Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Kazakhstan. And there were just all of these different flags, America, all hanging out of these windows. And one thing I love in particular is there's a picture with a Ukrainian and a Russian flag hanging out of a window, and on the window it's written, Russia loves Ukraine. And there's just so much love that people have for each other in that community, and it's kind of like this incredible utopia of like how these different cultures coexisting and loving each other.
That's cool.
Wow. That's really beautiful. I love that. So I want to hear about being a student there. Like, this is an international university. So, like, how much was kind of, like, geared towards a variety of cultures? Or was it more, like, geared towards Lithuanians because that's the country it was in? Or, like, what was that like? Yeah. So, the language course, you could take Lithuanian language. And that was... a lot of the teachers there, a lot of the professors that I had were Lithuanian. A couple were from the States, where we're being sponsored by the States. But I don't know, all the professors that I had were very, very good and very knowledgeable about their
their topic. They all spoke in English, though I think that there were probably several classes that were being offered in Lithuanian. I don't know necessarily for sure, but it was a very good in-between comfortability for me to feel, able to be in. I think it could have been a little bit more difficult for some of the incoming students that didn't have as big of a grasp on the English language, because not only are they tackling college courses, they're tackling them in English. So it's just very difficult. And I remember helping like some of my roommates and friends with some of their homework just because they were having trouble getting over that language barrier. The cafeteria food was fantastic. But
let's hear about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just pretty dang cheap and incredibly tasty. All Lithuanian. Cold beet soup is one of the best soups ever. You need to try it.
Is that like borscht?
It is.
Like in Russia?
Yeah, it's okay. First of all, borscht is traditionally Ukrainian, and my Ukrainian friend was very adamant about me like getting that right, and I was like, oh, wow.
I mean, they also serve it in Russia because I've had it in Russia.
It's true. Russia.
But I don't know if it may, it very well may have originated from the Ukraine.
Yeah, I don't know. Not to be that person. But
pretty controversial podcast we have here.
So controversial. It's getting spicy. Actually, there is no like spicy in Lithuania. It's absolutely like
okay. So 1 point against them then, but
Okay.
Nope, that's a point for them.
But cold beet soup, or I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but salty barshchi, is the Lithuanian variation of borscht traditionally, but it's basically buttermilk, beets, cucumber, dill, garlic, onion, salt, pepper. Chop it all up, mix it together. It's so good.
Interesting.
And they also their national dishes. They have cepelini, which is basically like a potato inside of a potato.
Why do you need a potato inside? Isn't there already potato inside a potato?
Is it stuffed potatoes? Is it twice baked potatoes?
It's like
because I do love twice baked potatoes.
A potato mixed with meat covered by a potato casing.
What?
And then there's also like their going out dish is it's got like it's fried bread with mayonnaise and cheese, and that's incredible. Yeah, so lots of potatoes, lots of cheese.
I mean, that sounds great.
It was great. Oh, pear cider.
Ooh.
So good.
Then this is all in the cafeteria.
Okay, the pear cider was not in the cafeteria.
Oh.
Yeah, but definitely the soup every time.
That's so fun. Paige and I made borscht together one time.
We did.
Fun. Yeah, it was wonderful.
It was so good.
She did a real happy dance about it. It was delicious. I loved it.
We had so many leftovers too. So much leftovers.
That's how good it was?
Yeah. So, tell us about some excursions you took, both like in the area you were staying, but like if you got to do any like further away excursions.
Jaunts to other countries?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before I stopped over in Iceland and then went to Paris and then went to Lithuania. During Lithuania, we traveled a little bit around. We went to this place, the biggest place in Lithuania that stands out. It's called the Hill of Crosses. And there, just people would put up crosses back when they were under the Soviet regime, and they would continually be burned, but they would just keep putting more and more crosses there until it's just completely crowded. And now people are still putting crosses there, and it's just absolutely beautiful. There's intricate ones, there's tiny little wooden ones, and you can basically walk up this hill and weave in between all of the crosses, and just a really beautiful place. We ended up traveling and going to Latvia and Estonia during one of our breaks, and we also went to Russia, where we visited Moscow, and St. Petersburg.
Ooh, St. Petersburg.
Yeah. So those were two also beautiful places. We saw the oh no. It's bad. I always confuse Stalin and Lenin, and I really shouldn't. But we saw, we walked by his body, and that was interesting.
Quick, Ryan, fill in the blanks.
It should be, I think it's Stalin, because I'm pretty sure Lenin is at the Kremlin, right?
I think so.
Well, it depends. Yeah. Are you talking about when you were in Moscow or when you were in St. Petersburg?
Moscow.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Lenin. Lenin's tomb, I think, is like right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we went
now
through
I have to check
Lenin's,
on Google, so.
Yeah, we went through Lenin's tomb. We said hi to his, mummified body, and there's a guard force. It was very
Can you
interesting.
see, him then?
Yeah, they've preserved his face. And they actually have a professional makeup person that comes in and makes him look presentable.
He looks, regularly?
Yeah, he looks like it could be your job to dress and change and take care of the body of Lenin.
Change him? Oh, Ryan's looking it up. I mean, there's a face, all right.
Yeah.
I don't think I want that job though.
I mean, I also have been able to go walk by another similarly preserved body. I went by Ho Chi Minh, and that was also really interesting, just the way they preserved the body.
Where was that?
That was in Vietnam.
Okay, so I think Dawn talked about that.
Possibly.
Yeah, we had a guest who talked about going past the preserved body.
Yeah.
So that's in Vietnam, so I'm guessing that's the same one, unless that's a super common thing, but I doubt it is.
It's probably the same one, yeah.
So what do you think about that experience? Was it interesting to you, or did it mean anything, or was it just kind of huh?
I mean, it is fascinating in its own regard, considering why does a culture think it's that important to preserve this person, to make them look like they're alive, though they're deceased? It's obviously a respect thing, and I don't know, I think it's interesting considering those different elements, and just the way that they guarded this body, too. And were very serious with, holding on to their armory and very straight-faced. We were told before we walked by, don't make any jokes, obviously, don't laugh, don't smile, just keep walking straight-faced. Yeah, it was honestly kind of intense, but it was definitely a kind of an interesting form of showing respect.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So I'm curious, and it's not directly related, but it reminded me. So as you're talking about, seeing Lenin's body and going into Russia, Lenin's obviously a big, symbol, I suppose, for lack of a better word, of communism, right? And so you sort of referenced this a little bit earlier, but how would you describe the kind of the mood and the response in Lithuanian culture towards communism? Is it still something that is viewed as it was a positive thing or a negative thing or some combination thereof? Is it generational?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would say this response is largely negative towards it. Okay. There was just the perception that I got from what I can remember of studying some of the history of it was that Russia or the Soviet Union would take a lot of different resources from the countries that they were occupying away unfairly from the workers, and people were generally not treated very respectfully or well. And there's actually, and one of the big things that stood out to me was there was a language ban during the Soviet regime. There was also all these certain things that you couldn't say. There are torture chambers still kept not active, but just kept as museums and kind of historical places where you can go
in Lithuania.
In Lithuania, yeah,
Wow.
where you can go and kind of like see what some of the people had to experience. And it was just like this very big, this very big time of living in fear, not being able to have all your freedoms. If you did speak out, if you acted in a way that wasn't in align with what the government was saying you should align with, then you could be possibly taken away and, tortured or never seen again. With their language, it was because Lithuania does have a very distinct and rich culture. As they were one of the Baltic tribes, they're not, they're their own country. They have their own history. And it's interesting. Lithuania and Latvia have similar languages, but Estonia is completely different because they're just all, different cultures. And Lithuania in particular, they kept their language alive by secretly teaching it, having, banned books underground, secretly teaching their children. It's honestly incredible that they were able to keep the language alive. Now they hold on to their language so dearly that there's these certain laws about ways that you're allowed to be grammatically correct, and you could get fined if you're not grammatically correct in your corporation, like using slang or something.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. One of the biggest food store chains, Icky, which means see ya. I know, but Icky.
The name of a food chain
is Icky.
Icky.
Certain things have different meanings in different languages. Okay,
it's true. But Icky Pasimatimo means see you later or see you again soon. And so Icky is the short version of like see ya. So they're kind of saying like we'll see you next time. But one of their biggest phrases is they have in their language, I love food. But in the Lithuanian language, you're only allowed to love people or your country. It's grammatically incorrect to love things like food. And so Icky, the grocery store, actually pays the Lithuanian government in order to keep their grammatically incorrect slogan, which is really interesting.
Whoa.
Wow. That's so interesting. Wow.
So this may sound really dumb, and so I apologize, but how can it be grammatically incorrect? Like I don't understand how that could be grammatically incorrect to say that you love food.
To love food. Well, it's something about how it can't be a certain kind of that's a really difficult question. I don't know if I can fully answer the question. I have it.
Is it like a relational love versus a love of an item?
Exactly. It's a relational love, so it has to do with like loving people, which are, active and living beings, and you don't love like stagnant things or objects. Or...
So do they just have a different word for what you would say about how you feel towards food?
They use like. Yeah.
Okay.
So like is good, but you can't. Love is too deep and too connected. It's kind of like how there's different words for the word love in some other languages too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like they actually are, like, on one level, like the grammatically part is, I think, the part that seems odd to me, but on one level, it's like it's protecting the original meaning of the word love. Because you could make the argument that in the United States, we overuse it to mean a whole bunch of different things that really, do we really love food? Or do we really just like it a lot and we enjoy it?
I mean, I really love food. But, like
you're in a love relationship with your food.
Sorry, Daryl. Like, I'm going to marry my hamburger instead.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's like a key part of our relationship too. So I don't know how that all works, but he could just propose with a burger and that would be fine. So
wow.
He can. Okay, do you hear that, Daryl? You can propose with a burger, and that would be fine. That is what Cheryl said. So, whatever plans you may have been concocting, not necessary. Tone it back. Just put the ring in a burger, and that would be fine.
Oh, I didn't even mean a ring. I just mean give me a burger. But,
okay. No ring necessary. Done. Way cheaper.
There you go.
Oh my goodness. I don't know what I just got myself into there, but Ryan defined it very nicely. So.
You're welcome.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, Greek that has like different types of love, like.
Probably not just Greek, but I know that Greek
but like agape,
does.
or, and so it's like loving
Eros,
someone like a brother,
storge,
or like these
phileo,
different.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. How was the transportation when you were at? Was it pretty? I mean, I'm assuming you didn't have a car.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, being a little 21-year-old at the time, I say it like that.
A little 21-year-old?
I say that like it's so long ago. It's really not. But I mean, just not very experienced with travel and everything. Trying to navigate the public transportation was at first really scary for me.
Do they do buses or trains, or what does that look like?
Yeah, they do buses, and the buses are, actually very cheap. It's like 15 cents, I think, to take a bus and be able to go into the main part of downtown. We were a little bit outside of downtown. It was still walkable, but generally, if it's nighttime, it's safer to take a bus, and the fares were pretty cheap. If we wanted to go to Latvia, my friend and I actually, when we finished one of our finals, or one of our midterms, we decided to just go for it and take a bus to Latvia, and that was actually very reasonable as well. I don't know, I remember it in general just very cheap comparatively to Paris, where I was taking the metro, and it just was really easy to get around.
That's very cool. So what types of things do people like to do over there?
Yeah, so Lithuanians' national sport, or at least the one that they're craziest about, is basketball. And
really?
Yeah. Huh. And we ended up being there during a time when they were in this giant European basketball tournament. And so we spent a lot of evenings going out to different pubs and bars. And, the pubs and bars are really good, like, vibey places to hang out, listen to live music, hang out with friends, not seedy at all. And they would have these giant screens of just basketball. And it was just really exciting watching all the locals get into it. And when they finally got second place, there was just partying on the streets. Just like so much excitement.
That's cool.
That's so fun.
Now, Cheryl and I are basically sports buffs.
Oh, yeah.
And know everything about all of the sports.
Yes. Yes.
But we don't know the answer to this question, so I'm wondering if you can help with this. How similar is Lithuanian basketball to American basketball?
Yes, because we are very local to only American sports in America and not when they go abroad. So, Yeah.
I know that sports can different countries and even on different continents, similar sports with similar names sometimes have different rules or different components to them.
If I'm being completely honest, I'm not the most sports proficient either. But it seemed, I think generally all of the rules and everything, they looked pretty much the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever differences there may have been were subtle enough that
they were very subtle.
So I'm going to bust out all of my basketball knowledge right now to see if it's the same in Lithuania as in the United States.
I'm excited.
All right.
Okay. So were there 3-pointers?
Yes.
Okay. Did they wear jerseys?
Yes.
Okay. Was there one ball and did it bounce?
Yes.
Okay. Were there slam dunks?
Occasionally.
Okay. Or this checks out so far. Was it indoors?
Yes.
Okay, great. And were there 9 people on each team? I don't know. Was it 9?
Don't look at me. I have no idea.
10, 11?
This is embarrassing. I honestly do not know.
I'm not embarrassed by the fact that I don't know.
I have no idea how. And at the time of this, we should probably also say, because this makes it that much funnier, is at the time of this recording, we're in the middle of March Madness.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
It's true. That's a big
and the fact
part
that
of
I had to remind you of that just evidences how into basketball we are. Because I'm sure you have your bracket filled out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I have the San Francisco Penguins, and they're
going all
they're
the
my
way?
team. Yeah, they're going all the way,
Uh-huh.
the Denver Walruses are close behind. They're my second favorite.
Do the walruses eat the penguins?
Ooh.
I was just, and now I'm actually picturing, this has nothing to do with travel
no.
or Lithuania. I'm picturing penguins and walruses playing basketball.
I would watch that.
That would
I'm
be
sure you
so
would.
cute.
Yeah.
I don't know. Walruses playing basketball. I don't feel like that would be
call
cute.
it a truce so they don't eat the penguins.
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
be-
I don't even know if
there'd have to be
walruses
some
would eat
sort of-
penguins. I don't know.
I don't know. But did they play against other countries?
They did, yeah. So it came down to the final match. I don't remember the competitor, but they actually lost that game, I think. So, because it was determining between 1 and 2. But everyone was still, so excited about getting second place. I don't
Would
know.
you say that that's a difference than what we tend to see here with fans?
I mean, I think it was really cool because it was more of a country coming together,
Mhm.
very excited about their, smaller country, going against all of these bigger Eastern and I think some Southern European countries. And just being able to hold their own and make it all the way to number 2 was such an exciting and wonderful thing to be proud of.
Yeah.
I think it's different possibly with American culture because, we have a large country where,
Mhm.
we put a lot of money into our program and then we play each other and there's not always that national camaraderie. Maybe in the Olympics there's some more of that, but yeah, it just felt very yeah, Lithuania, woo!
That's fun.
We did it.
Yeah. That's cool.
I like that.
Mhm.
Okay, I approve.
Yeah. I guess actually I'm more someone's going to hate me. I'm actually more interested in international sports than I am sports here. And maybe it's just because there's another culture involved and I'm just
Sure.
more interested in that. But
Sure, that sounds fun.
I also think that just the responses are more interesting.
Yeah.
Like you're describing, that national pride that
Mhm.
here it just feels so much more competitive. My team is better than your team. We're going to beat you, like that whole thing, as opposed to we enjoy that our team did well.
Mhm.
Which I guess then you could say it's more like the Olympics.
Yeah,
than
which
cheering on your
Paige said,
country.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Paige, we have some follow-up questions for you. The first one is based on the title of our show, Take Me With You. If you could take us to just one thing on this whole trip, what would it be and why?
One thing on this whole trip. So specifically in Lithuania?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if we were to go to Lithuania right now, first of all, we'd have to take a peek at the bay. But we would all go out and get some. They had these giant cheese sticks. Like, literally.
We were just talking about cheese earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, I need specifics.
So mozzarella sticks in the U.S., kind of like the size of your thumb or like around that size. These Lithuanian cheese sticks were like from, if I'm doing a hang loose sign, from my thumb to my pinky. Like, they're just so
Ooh.
big. Yes. And at least like an inch and a half in width. So,
whoa.
they're literally
Like in concert. It's like we're like the aliens from Toy Story.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd walk around, we'd go to a Lithuanian thrift shop, which they have incredible deals, get some coffee, eat some cheese sticks, try the local beer, and, maybe, like, sing a Lithuanian song. It would be great.
Can you sing us a Lithuanian song?
Yes, please.
No.
So she can.
No, I mean,
She just won't.
I don't remember the tune.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very, like, it's folky, but it's Lithuanian. And it's good. Oh, there was a modern Lithuanian band that was there, and they had a random free concert at one point called Sisters on a Wire, and they have really cool music. They're like, take me to the parallel world, where dreams will unfold, or something like that. It's so good.
It sounds very Lithuanian.
I
It's
mean,
very sci-fi.
Yeah.
but
Is this in the future?
one
Where cheese sticks are bigger?
popular song that came out of it was Nezhino. So like, this vision as I go. Sometimes I believe in times of Nezhino. I don't know if you guys have heard that one.
That's fun. No.
Nezhino means I don't know. So it's kind of a fun one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like
That's cool.
Nezhino.
So is a lot of their music like a hybrid of Lithuanian and English?
So they've got like that core, like cultural old style music, which is, kind of more folky, all in Lithuanian. But then they have this newer generation of Lithuanians, young adults who, grow up learning Russian, grow up learning English and Lithuanian. And so I think that there are some of the more popular bands that we were listening to incorporated all of those languages. And the band that was, the biggest when we were there, Sisters on Wire, they were actually kind of getting some spread around, I think, the Baltics and different countries. But they were generally in English because everyone, even if you're from Latvia, Estonia, Kazakhstan, you grow up learning English, so it is still a common lingua franca, even though everybody's cultural language is different and unique. So.
It's so interesting. Well, it sounds like a good day, and I'm ready. We only need 3 days notice. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Paige, what's your next trip?
Yeah. My next trip that I would love to go on. I definitely want to go back to Iceland at some point. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Iceland. All right. Yeah, there's one thing that I kind of am bummed about, I mean, it was amazing. I got to see so many beautiful things, but I never got to see the Northern Lights. And so I would love to go back. I've heard that there's igloos that you can rent. It's probably a touristy thing, but there's these like clear ceilinged igloos that you can spend the night in and watch the Northern Lights above you. Should be.
That sounds magical.
That sounds cold.
I mean, you probably have a sleeping bag.
I don't know if they're real igloos. Like, they might be made out of a different material. But, yeah.
That sounds fun. And do you have any travel questions for us?
Yes. So, how do you guys... I think there is some, when you first go to a new place, if you live there or you visit there, there is some culture shock. But how do you guys deal with reversed culture shock, or how have you experienced that?
So, like, returning to the States?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
The longest I have been away from the United States has been a couple weeks. The longest I've been away from Washington State has been several months when I was in school in Southern California. So, like, I do travel. I would not consider that time away from the U.S. an extended amount of time. I would say that, though, whenever I, like, appreciate something about a country, it is kind of a bummer to come back and be like, man, why don't we do that here? Yeah. And so I think for me, it's just this is not going to be a very, like, educated answer for you, or an experienced answer necessarily, but I would say whenever I see something in other culture that I prefer to the culture that I live in, I just try to apply the principle to my personal life and appreciate that new aspect that I've learned or new value, with also, like, continuing to be respectful to the culture that I'm in. Because I don't think it's fair to be like, well, they do that like this in this country, so I'm just going to, like, because the whole point is we learn about different countries and then how to, like, respect each other in different cultures, and so I think just, I don't know, I think it's hopefully helped me have a wider perspective on values in life. And so, yeah. Ryan.
Yeah, I think culture shock and then therefore reverse culture shock, I think that term may mean different things to different people. Like, I know that it definitely gets talked about on relatively, like, short-term trips, like several weeks or maybe a month or two. And I think that there probably is some aspect of culture shock and reverse culture shock involved with that. Like, one example, so I've mentioned this a whole bunch on this podcast, but I spent a lot of time in Slovenia and in Croatia over the years. And there was one time where I was over there for about 5 weeks. And I remember coming home and I was driving. I don't remember. I was trying to find my way somewhere. I was following directions. It was probably even Google Maps. And I remember there was, like, a street sign that either I was reading the street sign or Google was pronouncing the name of the street or something. And I don't remember. But I remember looking at it or hearing it and being, like, confused about the way it was pronounced because I had read it with the way you would read it in Slovene with the pronunciations, because some of the letters are a little different. And so, like, I remember, like, that sort of a moment, but I don't know that that's fully culture shock. Like, I have friends who live abroad. So, they've been over there. I've got some friends who've been over there. They just celebrated their 6 months over there. And I have other friends who've been over there for like 12, 13 years. And for them, when they come back, I think that is much more of a culture shock. It's a more extreme version where it's, I think it allows, kind of like what Cheryl was saying, it allows a fresh perspective to our own culture, to be able to see things that you don't always notice. in your home culture by going to another culture. Whether it's, how loud we are or how physically close we are or not to other people, or, whatever some of those more subtle things are. I think for me, it's tricky because I'm an introvert and I like things that I'm familiar with. And so coming home, while it's difficult in that, like, I'm missing the people and the places I've been, there's always a level of comfort in it because for me, it is home. I think it's different when you make a home in another country and then you come to the States. I think that's a much bigger thing that I haven't experienced. That's a really long answer to your question.
No, that was a great answer. Yeah. I love what you said about home, because it's true. Like, if home is where the heart is and your heart ends up being in several places at once, then
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, I think it's always a wonderful moment when you learn something is cultural that you thought was just human
just the
behavior.
way it was. Yeah.
Or when you question, like, oh, I thought this was a moral issue, but it's actually a cultural issue, or things like that. I think are even like being on time, or just things like that. I love learning those things of just like, yeah, there's not really a right and wrong with it. Just we as a culture decided that this is how we're going to be. And so it's, very interesting.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one more.
Okay.
How have you been changed by your travels?
Ooh. Paige, you ask really good questions.
Well, I think for me, so I struggle with the response of X, whatever it happens to be, really changed me. Because I would say in my life, things that I would say fundamentally changed me, I can count on one hand, right? That I would say, like, at a fundamental level, they really changed, like, who I am or the way that I view everything. There are very few things that I would put in that category. But as far as had an impact on me or maybe, like, pushed me a different direction in my life, I think there are a lot more things, and I definitely think that travel would fall into that category. So, for example, the first time I went internationally, that changed my interest in travel altogether. And I mean, now Cheryl and I have a travel podcast.
Yeah.
So obviously that has, like, changed kind of the trajectory of my life, and being able to be interested in not just learning about other cultures, but going and meeting people in other cultures and getting to know other cultures from that perspective. I think that is something that definitely kind of shifted what things I found were important or I enjoyed or whatever. Like, I remember, for any of you listening who grew up in, the evangelical church, I did that. And at least from my growing up experience, it was very often that, like, missionaries would come and they would tell stories, like in the summer or whatever, they'd be back for whatever, and they would tell stories. And I can remember multiple times being in, an elementary school and hearing these missionary stories about, like, being in the jungles of Papua New Guinea or Africa, or these, like, it was always these extreme places, and
very
how
exotic.
It was super scary and it was all this stuff. And I was like, I don't ever want to be a missionary or go travel or do any of those things. That just sounds awful. And then actually going to another country and being able to meet other people, and now I love that. I mean, granted, I still don't particularly want to go and be with big giant snakes that could, like, kill you, that, like, are in your room. That still doesn't appeal to me. But I also thought that that's what travel really was. And it doesn't have to be. Like, there's so many other things, So, I mean, it's definitely changed my perspective in that regard. I'd like to think it helps me think about things from other people's perspective and not just assume that my initial thought about the way something is or the way someone's behaving is maybe the full story. Maybe there are pieces that I'm missing. Now, I'd like to think that I'm better at that because of travel. I don't know that, and I definitely still have room to improve on that.
That's a good answer.
Cheryl?
Yeah, I think perspective for me would be one is just like, broadening my mindset towards people. I think people is the biggest one. Because, I think it's like, seeing things is very cool. And, like, certainly, like, the more I travel, the more I care about history. So
yeah, that's true. When you've been there, it matters.
Yeah, and seeing how history impacts a city or a civilization, you know, or different things like that. Seeing how architecture impacts that, you know, like all of those things are very interesting. And so I'd say I'm more of a learner the more that I travel. But I think really to me the key thing is people and how I think assumptions is a big one. Just like learning different perspectives and learning that just like how much of how we act and treat each other and live our lives are based on our values, and those values are going to be different based on how you were raised and what culture you're in and all those things. And that I don't know, just like I think the more I spend time with people in other places, the more I don't have a lot of pride in, and it depends on your definition of pride, but pride in our country being the best or my state being the best, or you know what I mean, or like we know better, or you know what I mean. Just like I think it really saddens me how some Americans view our country compared to the rest of the world,
even though we do have a great country.
Yeah, and like there's times when I just want to hate on our country, and then also I can be thankful, you know, for the country that I live in and everything, but also realizing just like there's pluses and minuses to all sorts of different places that you live, and you know, and I think meeting people, I think a big one, meeting people who have a long family history in the same location is very interesting, because we live in Seattle, and so there's first of all there's just not a long history here, certainly not of like Ryan and I are both white, so like and then also like my parents are from California, but
so
like and then like but like they don't have a long California history necessarily that like shaped who they are either, you know, so like just when you see someone's identity being shaped by a location and by family history in a location, that is just fascinating. So yeah, but I think even just like, I mean, also we live in a place where there are a lot of people who have moved here from other countries. And so the fact that I have been to other countries, I think helps me communicate with them well and treat them well. And even I have a friend who hasn't traveled much, and like one time he was just talking about how like people are so disrespectful when they're late, for example. And I was like, well, yeah, but it depends. It's also in some places disrespectful to leave a conversation early to get somewhere on time. Like it's, you know what I mean? And it was like, yeah, but they're here, and so they should. And it was just like, oh gosh, like and so. I don't know. It's lots of perspective stuff, lots of just mental changes, I guess. But yeah. We could go on for a while, but
but we can't let Paige ask any more good questions. It'll be
Paige,
another 15 minutes.
Stop it.
So thank you so much for sharing, Paige. That was very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. That was fun.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Oh, that's
Nuh-uh.
We're just done. We're just done with your main travel story. We're going to now move to Wish You Were Here. So this is going to be a segment where each of the three of us is going to share a highlight or an attraction from our travels, and kind of like a little snapshot postcard, like, hey, wish you were here, and just tell about a quick little cool thing from our travel. Cheryl, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so we're going to go back to Spain.
Spain? But you've never been to Spain, Cheryl. What could you possibly have to talk about in Spain?
So I've been trying to think about my first visit to Spain in 2000, which is a little more difficult because I was like a middle schooler then, and that was 19 years ago. And so, like, a trip from 19 years ago that I did not plan is like, I know we did cool things, but it's a little tricky for the Wish You Were Here. But, you know, we got to keep generating this content. So I do remember a very specific one that I know where it was, so I can actually send our listeners there. So in Segovia, which is a town outside of Madrid. So Madrid is smack dab in the middle of the country in Spain. And Segovia is north and west of Madrid.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a really dumb question.
That's fine.
So I hear Segovia, and it reminds me of the second Avengers movie.
Ooh.
Is that also Segovia? Or is that some other made-up city name that in my head is Segovia?
I have not seen the second Avengers movie.
Because isn't it the second one, Age of Ultron or whatever, where they, like, lift up the whole city? They, like, pick up the city?
Really?
Paige, do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Nobody knows what I'm talking
Listeners, write in. Ryan's going to Google it while
I'm going to look
sharing.
it up. Why don't you go ahead,
So
Cheryl?
something that's in Segovia is a very old aqueduct. It was built in the 1st century. It's a Roman aqueduct, and I don't believe it's functional anymore, but it worked as an aqueduct, and it goes along the whole city. There are some nice spots in town where you can see it, like where it's most preserved and everything. But there's just a lot of cool architecture in that town. There's a castle there too, which is great. And it's just a 30-minute bullet train ride outside of Madrid. So it's pretty easy to get there as well. But check out that aqueduct because it is very impressive. It is tall.
So what makes it impressive?
I mean, first of all, that it's still around.
From like 2,000 years ago?
Yes. And that's very cool. And just like thinking about like, I don't know, they were super smart with how they built stuff and like functionality before like all the technology that we have today. So it's just like, that's really cool. And it's just really beautiful too. It has all these arches. And so it's just like, even just as like an architectural piece, I would say it's really beautiful to look at too. Okay. So check out that aqueduct.
Yeah. In case you were wondering, it's Segovia.
Oh,
but that's really similar,
that's
right?
That's very similar. Yeah.
Right? Segovia. Like, you could see where I would get confused, having not been to either place.
Oh, man.
Although one of them I'm pretty sure is fictional.
Yeah. We'll find out which one.
All right, Paige, why don't you go ahead and share your Wish You Were Here with us?
All right. I'm actually going to share about a place that I found in Paris. So when I first got to Paris, I did a lot of traveling by bus and everything, but at my hostel I actually met these German siblings, and they were like, oh no, we're not traveling by bus, we're going by foot.
They weren't Hansel and Gretel, were they?
I don't know. No. Okay. I don't think so. But
only German siblings I know.
But yeah, so we decided to walk around, and we ended up walking to the Montmartre district, and there's this beautiful building. I believe I've pulled it up here, but it's called like the Sacré-Cœur.
Yeah, Sacré-Cœur, yeah.
And it's so beautiful, and I remember just feeling this mountaintop moment when we got all the way up those steps, and we could see the Eiffel Tower from there, and there's just this beautiful view of Paris, and the district is just so alive, and yeah, it was wonderful. So
that sounds fantastic. I have never been to the
Sacré-Cœur, I think, is the way it's
pronounced. I haven't been there. I've seen it from the city, and it looks amazing.
Yes.
I don't actually know what it is. Is it a castle?
It's a church, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. It's a church situated in the Montmartre district, kind of on top of this hill, so you have to climb to get up to it. And then there's a lot of steps that you take as well, and yeah, it's just really neat.
And did you go inside the church?
I did not. No, I believe there was a gate up when we were there at the time, but definitely got.
I'm sorry, there was what?
A gate.
There was a gate up.
Oh, a gate, so
but
like it was locked.
we definitely got as close as we could. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And were you there during the day? Were you there at night?
The first trip we took was during the day. We took a trip later during the night, and that was also really neat because at that point, the entire city is just lit up with all the lights and everything. And I believe around 10 or 11 o'clock, the Eiffel Tower will just start doing this giant light show. And I had no idea that this is something that happened, but it just starts flashing, and it's really beautiful. And so
That's
from
so
there, you can see the Eiffel Tower just doing this giant like light strobe thing.
And you could see it from Sacré-Cœur.
Sun Sacré-Cœur, yeah.
So
Nice.
so if you were to recommend, if someone only could go up there once, would you recommend they go up there during the day or at night?
Oh, that's so hard. I'd say I think that the on foot experience would be good to go by day, but if you were to go by night, you should take the metro. That doesn't really answer your question.
Let's say
Okay.
transportation is not an issue.
Yeah. Okay. It's so hard to pick though. I would say at night,
Yeah.
just because there's also street vendors out, and they'll probably, sell you a snack, and you can
Snacks.
snack on that while you're.
And Cheryl,
Yes.
there is also a funicular
Oh,
that you could ride to go
There
up at
is?
least part way up there.
there is. This is quickly becoming the funicular podcast, where we need to travel the world to ride all of the funiculars.
There you
Well,
go.
because you
They're
didn't even know what one was
hilarious.
first.
I know. They're like a diagonal bus
Yep.
Sure. Or diagonal train.
or train, but it's a diagonal.
because it goes uphill, sure.
It's so funny, but it's upright when it goes uphill, as opposed to like if a train just went uphill.
Oh, it being angled. I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the seat is meant to be at this like almost.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
Permanent
a 45
incline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ryan, how about you?
So I'm going to recommend something in Sydney, Australia. So I was there in 2012, and I like to get sort of a lay of the land sort of a thing, to be able to see stuff and know where things are in relation to each other. And a really fun way that we did that when I was there is we did a bike tour of Sydney.
Ooh.
And so it's like a walking tour in that you're not going so fast that like things are whipping past you on a bus, and there's no like windows between you and the thing, but it's faster than a walking tour because you're on a bike, and it's just more active. It's not just sitting there passively. You actually get to kind of be out and see things and experience the city. It may have rained while we did it, but that was okay. And it was just really a fun way of going around different parts of Sydney and seeing different parts of Sydney. And like one of the things that we got to do, and I'm looking through my pictures to see if I can find it, is we actually and I don't see it, but we actually rode around the Sydney Opera House. So like
so
there's
fun.
this road, and you can like go around the back side.
Yeah.
So the Opera House kind of like sticks out almost as like a mini peninsula, but there's a little pathway that goes around the whole thing. And so we
Wow.
rode around the whole Opera House, which was just a fun, I mean, you could walk it, but it's a longer walk. So you can actually see more stuff doing
That's
the
cool.
bike tour. And so it was enjoyable. We'd stop periodically, and our guide would tell us stuff. But we got to see more than we would normally get to see just walking around. There it is. There, I found the pictures.
Ooh, that's fun.
Right. Well, this is me taking pictures while I'm riding a bike, which is probably not the best idea, but I didn't fall. So
That's
so
good.
that's
There
good.
you go.
Yeah.
Oh man. So okay, I don't know a lot about is the correct word, would it be topography?
Yes.
Of Sydney.
Yes.
So I mean I know it's on the water, so I'm assuming like the waterfront is flat, but like
Yep.
is the rest of the city uphill, or does it stay pretty flat?
It's mostly flat. There is, and I'm trying to remember if it's in the middle of the city. there's, I was going to say it's like Seattle, but it's not, because Seattle has ridiculous hills.
Yeah.
It's relatively flat. We definitely did go uphill a couple of times.
Okay.
There is also the part that was actually, I think, the steepest was and I don't remember what it's called, but the big bridge that's kind of across the bay from the Opera House. And we biked up halfway and then turned around and came back down. And so that was just kind of like this steady incline. There's an observatory in Sydney. And so we biked, and it's on top of sort of a hill. And so we biked up to that. And there's this cool park with some views and things. And we were up there as well, which was pretty cool.
Cool.
But for the most part, I mean, I'm not exactly the most physically fit person. And I was able to handle it okay. I mean, there was a little bit where I was like, okay, we're expending some energy, but it was
doable.
I thought so. Like
cool.
I wouldn't say that you have to be, super fit to do it. I mean, obviously if you get winded just, walking upstairs, then biking up a similar incline is probably going to make you winded as well. But
so Ryan,
yeah,
this was an international sport that you did.
Biking?
Cycling.
There you go.
Cycling. Me. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Me with all of the international sportsing that I do. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Paige, thank you for being on our podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Paige, thank you so much for being on our podcast. It was great to hear your perspectives.
Thanks. Yeah, it was so good to be I don't know, just dialoguing with you guys and talking about these different experiences. It's really good to relive memories and stuff like that.
Aww,
for sure.
I love that.
Awesome. So if you are interested in following us on social media, and you should be, please follow us at Timwy Podcast. That's TMWY for Take Me With You podcast on all of the different social media. We'll post pictures and images of cool things that we heard about today. And we would love for you to be able to follow us to find out more.
That's right. You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. And, tell us what we got wrong about the Avengers movie or something else. I don't know. Or you could tell us your travel stories, ask us travel questions. How has travel changed you? Huh? You ever think about that?
Turn it around. Yeah, we would love to hear from our listeners, like things that you like, things that we should keep doing, things that maybe you're not so keen on, things we should maybe not be doing, or maybe you have a cool idea for a segment for us to do, or you would like to be a guest. Any of those things, you could call us and let us know. You could call us at 406-763-8699, or you could think of that as 406 pod Timwy, and then you could leave us a voicemail message, or you could text us if you'd rather not actually speak, but you would like to send us messages that are in the text format, then you could definitely do that. We'd love to hear from you. Please also rate and review us and subscribe using your favorite podcast subscribing device so that you can make sure you don't miss any of our episodes.
And as always, thank you so much to Beth Morrell for our awesome artwork. You can check out more of her beautiful artwork at Beth Is Something.
Yes, thank you, Beth. All right, that's going to do it for us. One more time, thank you so much, Paige, for joining us on this episode. We appreciate the stories that you have shared.
Yeah, thanks. So fun.
And until next time, take me with you.
Take me with you.